3 days after I canceled the black card, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages about a penthouse, about cars, about how something had gone wrong. Nothing had gone wrong. Something had finally stopped. My name is Audrey Crawford, and the story didn't start with the card. It started earlier, on a random afternoon I almost ignored. I was walking through a high-end shopping corridor in Seattle. Not sightseeing, just killing time between meetings. The place smelled faintly like new leather and burnt coffee. I remember that because it annoyed me. That's when I saw my daughter-in-law. She was laughing. Not polite laughing. Real laughing. Holding shopping bags. Standing close to a woman I recognized before my brain even caught up. That part matters. I had seen that woman at a business event months earlier. My husband introduced her as a communications consultant. I remembered her name from the payroll, a communications consultant I'd approved payments for, though I'd never seen her in person. Seeing her now, wearing the same chunky bracelet from the expense reimbursement photo she'd submitted, made my stomach drop. My daughter-in-law lifted a bag and said, low but clear, "Get it. Money's not the problem. Leo is too scared to say anything to his mother, and she still thinks everything's fine at home." I didn't freeze. I didn't storm over. I didn't do anything dramatic. I stepped back behind a column, pulled out my phone, took 2 photos. Not shaky. Calm. I noted the store name, the time, the way they didn't even look around. I know. You're probably thinking I should have confronted them. Honestly, so did I. For about 5 seconds. Then I left. I drove straight to my office instead of home. Didn't cry. Didn't call anyone. Just sat there. Engine ticking. Hands still on the wheel. Thinking how stupid it was that I'd been trying so hard to keep things peaceful. By the time I shut the car door, I already knew what I was going to check next. I didn't go home. I went to my office. The lights were still on. Cleaning crew in the hallway. Someone's vacuum whining like it was angry at the carpet. I shut my door and opened my laptop. I told myself I was just checking one thing. That was a lie. I pulled transaction logs first, then calendar entries, then vendor payments. I lined them up side by side. Dates, times, locations. I've done this 1,000 times for work. It's boring when it's not your life. Client outreach dinner. My husband had written 3 words. Lazy. That charge showed up again. And again. Same amount. Same restaurant group. Always on nights he told me he'd be working late. I clicked deeper. Reservation details. 2 seats? Not one. I opened another tab. The private card usage tied to my daughter-in-law. Same nights. Same places. Different excuse every time. I called accounting. Kept my voice flat. I need copies of the last 6 months of vendor reimbursements. I told them, the consulting line, a pause. Then, everything okay. Audrey, just cleaning up. When the files came through, I didn't feel shocked. That part surprised me. I felt organized. Like something finally snapped into focus. I created a folder. Gave it a stupid name. Neutral. Boring. Dropped screenshots. Invoices. Calendar overlaps inside. One by one. Clean. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't sad either. I was building something. A map. And maps are useful when you're deciding where to cut power next. My husband has always been charming in public. The kind of man who shakes hands like he's granting favors. At home, he relaxes into something else. That night, he dropped his keys in the bowl and loosened his tie. Didn't look at me. Long day, he muttered. I nodded like I always do. Kept scrolling on my phone. That silence, he loved it. He thought it meant comfort. Or control. Hard to tell. Later, he leaned against the counter and talked at me. Not to me. People expect a certain image. He went on. You know how that works. Family money needs to look fluid. Family money. His favorite phrase, like it floated down from the ceiling. I looked up. You mean my accounts? He smiled. Small. Dismissive. You don't need to get technical. You handle the paperwork. I handle the people. That one landed. I swear I felt it in my jaw. He kept going. Didn't notice. You're stuck in the old way of doing business, Audrey. Branding. Optics. It requires a certain flair you don't have. I'm the one keeping this family relevant while you just push paper. For me. Right. I remembered the invoices, the dinners, the way he talked about my work like it was a hobby I'd outgrown. I didn't argue. That's the part that fooled him. I just watched him pour himself a drink I'd paid for, in a glass I'd chosen, standing in a kitchen I owned outright. He had no idea how much of his life ran on my quiet approvals. That night, I made a decision and didn't announce it. He mistook my calm for consent. People like him always do. By morning, I was already outlining what would disappear first. I used to think my daughter-in-law was just careless, loud, a little entitled in the way people get when they marry into comfort. I was wrong. Careless people leave messes. She left trails. A week before the mall, she'd stopped by the house, sat at the counter scrolling her phone like the place was a waiting room. You still doing everything on paper, she asked, not looking up. Feels inefficient. I shrugged. Paper remembers. She laughed. Short. Mean. That's cute. Cute. Like I was a phase. Another time. She waved my card at a server and told him, put it here. She prefers points. She didn't check. Didn't ask. Just assumed access meant permission. When I pulled the file together, her name kept appearing where it shouldn't. Reservations, private rooms, a florist invoice tied to a consulting dinner my husband never attended alone. She didn't stumble into those moments. She coordinated them. I ran into her at a family thing after the mall. She leaned close. Breath smelling like mint gum. You worry too much, she murmured. Things change. You have to know when to step back from my own life. That's when it clicked. She wasn't just keeping his secrets. She was using the Mistress to funnel extra consulting fees into her own side ventures. They were partners in a heist. And I was the vault. The Mistress had momentum. My husband had noise. I had structure. Structure looks boring until it's gone. I stopped calling her my daughter-in-law in my head. Family words soften edges. I needed edges. I opened my folder again and added a new tag. Not names, not feelings, just risk. If you're still with me here, yeah. This is the part where you realize it wasn't about betrayal. It was about ambition wearing borrowed shoes. By the time I closed the file, I knew exactly what had to be reversible. And how fast. I called my banker first. Not dramatic. Just a calendar block and a secure line. I need a confirmation. I told him. The black card tied to my account. Secondary user only. He didn't hesitate. Primary holder retains full control. Revocation is immediate. Good. Then my attorney. Short call, no speeches. The vehicles I asked. Corporate assets. She replied. Fleet registered under your company. Retrieval can begin within 48 hours. And the penthouse. Silence for half a second. Paper rustling. Held in your trust. Occupancy rights are discretionary. That was it. No raised voices. No warnings about consequences. Just ownership doing what ownership does. I didn't feel powerful. I felt organized. That night, I walked through the house and took what was mine. Not furniture. Small things. A watch from my father. A folder of contracts. A spare hard drive. I unplugged the home system and reset the passwords. One by one. Phone. Cloud. Garage access. The kind of cleanup people never notice until it's gone. My husband watched from the doorway, glass in hand. Big spring cleaning, he joked. Something like that. He smirked. Relax. Everything's under control. That word again. Control. He thought it lived in his voice. I scheduled the timing carefully. I knew when my daughter-in-law liked to be seen. I knew which places made her feel untouchable. I wanted witnesses, not scenes. I sent one last email to myself. Subject line contingencies. Attached nothing. Just a marker in time. I'll admit this part, because it matters. I hesitated, not about them, about myself, about how quiet I'd made my own life to keep theirs loud. If you've ever dismantled something you built, you know the feeling. It's not anger, it's precision. By the time I turned off the lights, everything that could be undone was ready to be undone. They picked a place that liked mirrors. Not for vanity, for proof. If it reflected well, it counted. I wasn't there. I know that matters. Power shifts feel different when you're not in the room. My phone buzzed while I was reviewing a contract. One buzz, then two. Then a pause that felt heavier than the noise. I glanced at the screen, a text preview from my daughter-in-law. No words yet, just typing. Then nothing. Across town, she was holding court, laughing too loud. The mistress leaned back in her chair like she belonged there. The bill came folded, thick. They didn't look at the number. They never did. The black card hit the table. Not tossed. Placed. Slow. Like a crown changing hands. The server smiled and took it. A minute passed. The server returned, voice lowered. I'm sorry. It didn't go through. Let me try again. The card went back. Another swipe. Another pause. I can grab a different terminal, the manager offered. Already moving. This place hated friction. They trained for it. Third try. Same result. This card has been revoked by the primary account holder, the manager explained. Careful. Polite. Eyes flicking between them. It's not an error. The word revoked landed wrong. You could feel it. The daughter-in-law's smile slid. The mistress straightened. Jaw tight. That's impossible. My daughter-in-law snapped. It worked this afternoon. The manager nodded. It doesn't now. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my husband. Hey, something weird is happening with the card. His message read, fix it, like a setting, like a glitch. I didn't reply. Another text came through, then a call. I let it ring. I swear the silence felt louder than the vibration. There was a moment this part matters when someone laughed. Not a real laugh, a reflex, the kind people use to pretend they still belong. I closed my laptop, put my phone face down, took a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. If you've ever watched a system fail from the outside, you know it doesn't explode. It stalls. It waits. It forces people to notice what they never owned. By the time the restaurant found a workaround that didn't involve me, something else had already shifted. Not the money, the certainty, and certainty, once gone, doesn't come back all at once. The cars went first. Not dramatic. No tow trucks with sirens. Just a man in a pressed jacket knocking on the garage door with a clipboard. My husband called me from the driveway. Do you know why someone's taking the sedan? His voice tried for casual. Missed. They're retrieving company property. I told him, calm, even, that's ridiculous. He snapped, it's our car. It's the company's. I replied, and let the line go quiet. By the next morning, 2 more vehicles were effectively bricked. I didn't just send a driver. I revoked their status as authorized operators on the corporate insurance policy and triggered the remote kill switch on the GPS fleet system. They didn't hand over the keys out of politeness. They handed them over because the cars were legally undrivable and physically locked down. The neighbors watched like it was a weather event, something passing through. My daughter-in-law texted me then, long message, lots of exclamation points. She blamed bank fraud, then a system update. Then a clerical error. I didn't answer. At the penthouse, access failed in a way that felt personal, even though it wasn't. Key fob flashed red. Elevator didn't move. Security met them with practiced neutrality. Access has expired, the guard explained. Eyes already drifting past them. You'll need to contact the property administrator. I am the family. My daughter-in-law insisted. Voice sharp enough to cut glass. The guard nodded once. I'll note your concern. That phrase traveled fast. Concern, not emergency, not mistake. My husband tried again that night. Different tone. Softer. You're making this bigger than it needs to be, he murmured, like we were negotiating bedtime. I'm not making anything, I replied. I'm letting it run. He didn't understand that. He'd always believed problems existed because I held them up, behind the scenes. Nothing moved faster because no one was paid to rush. No one flagged my requests as urgent. There were no favors left to call in. Here's the part I won't dress up watching systems work is boring. That's why people underestimate them. By the third day, the calls slowed. Not because things were fixed, because they weren't. And everyone had started looking for someone else to blame. They showed up together. That alone told me everything. My husband came in first, jaw tight. Then Leo, my son, hovered behind him. I didn't look at him with surprise. I looked at him with the weight of the bank statements I'd found earlier. Seeing the son I raised standing shoulder to shoulder with the man destroying our family was a different kind of cold. My daughter-in-law walked last, chin high, arms crossed. Like this was a meeting she planned. We need to talk. My husband opened, voice smooth, practiced. You're blowing this up. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit if you want. No one did. My son tried next. Mom, this looks bad. People are asking questions. You don't have to go this far from what I asked. Paying my daughter-in-law scoffed. You're being dramatic. This is family. You don't just pull things away without warning. I leaned back. Let the silence stretch. Then I slid my laptop forward and turned the screen. The photos came first. The mall, the bags, the timestamps. Then the invoices, consulting fees, private dinners, reimbursements filed under outreach. Same names, same dates. My husband's face changed. Not panic, calculation. You don't understand how these things work, he started. Those expenses were necessary. Branding, visibility. I clicked again. Brought up the account structure, trust documents, corporate asset lists. The black card, I told them, was a secondary user card, always was. The cars were fleet vehicles. The penthouse sits in my trust. Occupancy was discretionary. My daughter-in-law laughed once. Short, forced. You can't just take everything. I didn't take anything back. I replied. My voice surprised me. Steady, almost kind. I stopped paying for betrayal. My son flinched. My husband stepped closer. You think you can do this without consequences? His tone dropped. Threat adjacent. You'll regret it. The press alone. You already spent your regret, I cut in. You spent it in private rooms and quiet lies. That landed. He froze. My daughter-in-law snapped then. You're punishing everyone because you feel embarrassed. I shook my head. I'm correcting a leak. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at my son. He finally spoke. I told you not to make a scene, he muttered, not meeting my eyes. That hurt more than I expected. Not sharp, dull, like a bruise you don't notice until later. I stood up. Not to dominate, just to end it. This isn't a discussion. I told them. The accounts are closed. Access is revoked. What you do next is on you. My husband stared like he was trying to memorize my face. My daughter-in-law looked past me, already searching for the next option. My son looked small. Here's the part I won't pretend was noble. I wanted one of them to apologize. Really apologize. No strategy, no angle. No one did. I picked up my folder and walked past them. As I reached the door, my husband spoke again, quieter now. You think you've won? I paused. Not for him, for myself. I think I'm done, I said, and left the room, knowing something else was about to start breaking. The consultant vanished from the payroll faster than a bad dream. She didn't just quit. She dissolved her LLC 48 hours after I flagged the fraud. She was a professional. She knew that once I stopped the flow of money, the only thing left for her was a legal subpoena. She ran because the paper trail I held was enough to end her career. No dramatic exit, just absence. The kind that tells you exactly what the relationship was built on. My daughter-in-law didn't take it well. She called my son first. Not me. I know because he showed up at my office an hour later, sweating through his collar like he'd run there. She's blaming me, he blurted. She thinks I should have handled me. Like a loose account, I let him pace, let him talk himself into a corner. She says if I'd convinced you earlier, if you'd just let it go, none of this would have happened. I finally looked up. You told me to let it go. He stopped, stared at the floor. I was trying to keep things calm. He muttered. Everyone was benefiting. You weren't getting hurt. That word again. Benefiting. I opened my folder and slid it across the desk. Not everything. Just enough. Transfers, card usage tied to his trips, gifts. He never asked where the money came from. You didn't stay silent. I told him. You chose comfort. His mouth opened. Closed. He rubbed his face like he could wipe the moment away. I stood up. That always changes the temperature. I'm cutting financial support. I added, and I need space. He nodded too fast. Panic pretending to be agreement. I walked him to the door. Didn't hug him. Didn't soften it. Here's the messy truth. I waited for him to say something that might save us. Something unscripted. He didn't. Once he left, I blocked a few numbers. Not out of anger, out of clarity. If you're wondering whether that was hard, yeah, it was. But hard doesn't mean wrong. Silence settled in after that. Not empty. Final. I went back to work the next morning. Same desk. Same chair. Different weight in my shoulders. My assistant asked if I wanted to clear my calendar. I looked at it. Meetings I'd agreed to out of obligation. Dinners that were really negotiations disguised as family time. Clear it. I told her. All of it. She hesitated. Everything. Yes. No drama after that. No updates about them unless someone tried to route a call through. Those got declined. Not forwarded. Declined. There's a difference. I didn't follow their fallout. I didn't ask who moved where or who stopped speaking to whom. That part surprised people. They expect revenge to be loud. Mine was administrative. A few days later, my husband left a voicemail. Short, careful. Talking like he was afraid of waking something. I just want to talk. He offered. We can figure this out. Figure it out meant finding a new angle. I deleted it. Here's the part I didn't expect. The quiet didn't feel empty. It felt clean, like a room after you throw out furniture that never fit. One morning, I poured coffee and forgot about it. Found it later, lukewarm. Still drank it. I checked my calendar again. Nothing blinking for attention. No reminders to smooth things over. I'm 59. I don't have the patience I used to, or maybe I finally do. I'll say this, and I'm saying it to you, not them. Funding people isn't love. Silence isn't consent. And peace doesn't always arrive with forgiveness. Sometimes it shows up when you stop participating. If this story landed anywhere close to home, tap like before you forget. Subscribe if you want more stories that don't wrap things up neatly. Drop a comment if you've ever had to choose distance over damage. I shut my laptop and stood up. No audience. No victory speech. Just space I didn't have to explain anymore. That was enough.